In this video, we're gonna talk about double angle and half angle formula here. So we got parts A through D here, and then we're given that sine theta is 3 over 5, and then the theta is between 0 and pi over 2. So let's draw the triangle there. Okay, and we have a triangle in the first quadrant, and that's the angle. Sine theta is opposite over hypotenuse, and when you do, it's 3, 4, 5 triangle. Okay, you could use Pythagorean theorem to check it. And sine double angle formula, if you look at here, it's 2 times sine theta times cosine theta. So let me just write that over here. So we're doing part A right now. So we have sine 2 theta. I mean, this should be easy, the easiest step here, double angle for sine. It's just going to be 2 times sine theta angle times cosine theta. Okay, let me hide that. Then all we need to figure out is what sine theta and cosine theta is. Well, they give you the sine theta. It's going to be, in the problem, it's 3 over 5. And then using that triangle, we need to figure out what cosine theta is. Cosine theta is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be 4 over 5. So if you multiply everything together, that's going to be 24 over 25. So answer to part A is just this. Let's move on to part B. Part B, I'll use a different color here. Part B, it's cosine 2 theta. So we got cosine 2 theta is going to be, when you look at the, so you first have to memorize all these double angle formula here. Cosine, we have 3 versions. You have this first one, and then these other 2. Okay, they all come from the same thing, because cosine squared theta is actually equal to 1 minus sine squared theta. So if you substitute this for cosine squared theta, it's 1 minus sine squared theta minus sine squared theta, which comes to be like that. Okay, and the third one, just change sine squared theta equal to 1 minus cosine squared theta, and you're gonna get this one. Okay, so I'm just gonna use they're all same, so I'm just gonna use the first one here. Or let me see, I could just use the second one, because look, they gave us what sine theta is, but you could use anything because we already figured out what cosine theta is. Okay, so let me just use the second one over here, this one right there. So cosine 2 theta is going to be 1 minus 2 times sine squared theta. Well, sine theta was 3 over 5, so let me just put 3 over 5 and then square that. Okay, so that's going to be 1 minus 2 times 9 over 25. That's 1 minus 18 over 25. It's going to be 25 on the bottom. 25 minus 18, so it's going to be 7 over 25. So that's the part B answer. Let's move on to the half angle formula. Okay, I'm going to erase this now. So again, we got theta is 3 over 5, so that's in first quadrant here. Okay, so that's the theta. And then let me redraw this. So this is 4. Now, sine theta over 2. That's theta over 2. So it's going to be this equation right there, or formula right there. So you first have to decide whether it's going to be positive or negative. Okay, that's the sign, meaning positive or negative, is determined by the angle that we're sining. Remember? So it's theta over 2. But the domain here, it's between 0 and then theta over here. Let me erase that. That's the theta. And then it's supposed to be pi over 2, less than pi over 2. But we have to focus on what theta over 2 is. So if you divide everything by 2, it's going to be 4, right? So it's actually 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Then theta over 2, pi over 4. It has to be between 0 and pi over 4, which is still first quadrant. So it's going to be sine of any angle in the first quadrant is going to be positive. So we forget about negative here. Just put positive there. Okay? That's how you determine, that's the hardest part, I think. That's how you determine whether it's going to be positive or negative. So 1 minus, now all you do is cosine theta, not theta over 2. So cosine theta is going to be adjacent, which is 4 over 5 hypotenuse. And then instead of dividing by 2, I mean, you could do that. I like to put it like this. Multiply by 1 over 2. They mean the same. So it's going to be square root of common denominator 5. Everything's under the radical here. That's 5 minus 4, which is 1 times 1 over 2. It's going to be square root of 1 over 10. Okay? And if your school teachers don't really like having square root for the denominator, you need to rationalize the denominator by multiplying by rad 10 over rad 10 like this. So in the bottom portion, denominator becomes just regular 10, and then numerator becomes square root of 10. Okay, so that's part C. Let's do half angle for cosine. So that's going to be part D here. Okay, so part D, we have to use half angle formula for cosine. Okay, again, same idea, theta over 2, so it's going to be from 0, which is less than theta over 2, which is less than pi over 4. So we're still talking about first quadrant, and first quadrant cosine is going to be positive. So we're just going to put cosine theta over 2 is going to be positive 1 plus cosine, now it's plus cosine, the theta is going to be 4 over 5, and then over 2, I'm just going to multiply by 1 over 2 like that. Okay, so square root of, that's going to be, numerator is going to be 9, multiplied by 2, so it's going to be square root of 9 over square root of 10, and then 9 just comes out as 3, but we still got square root of 10. So how do we do it? We'll multiply top and bottom by square root of 10, which becomes 3 square root of 10, everything over 10. So that's the answer to part D. Let's do this example now. So we have tangent theta is equal to 4 over 3, and our quadrant of that theta is going to be between pi and 3 pi over 2, which is going to be the third quadrant here. So you have to draw your triangle, and then reference angle, that's theta. Tangent, it's going to be opposite over adjacent. They're both going to be negative. Okay, so part A says you have to get sine 2 theta. Double angle formula for sine over here. Okay, let's complete the triangle first. If this is 3, this is 4, the hypotenuse must be 5. So hypotenuse never gets negative, it's always going to be positive. Okay, so sine 2 theta is going to be 2 times sine theta multiplied by cosine theta. Okay, let's plug in numbers here. 2 times sine theta is going to be opposite over hypotenuse, so it's going to be negative 4 over 5 times cosine will be adjacent, negative 3 over hypotenuse 5. Let me see if anything cancels out. Nope. So it's going to be, denominator is going to be 25, and then multiply, let me see, 8 times 3, and it's going to be positive. Okay, so part A is going to be 24 over 25. So part B is going to be cosine 2 theta. We're going to use any one of these three. Let me see, what should we use? Okay, we just used the second one for the earlier example. Let's just use the first one here, cosine square minus sine square. So cosine square theta minus sine square theta. Okay, let's see what it comes out to be. Cosine theta is going to be adjacent negative 3 over hypotenuse 5, but we're going to square that. And then sine square is going to be negative 4 over 5. Okay. Okay, let me see what this comes out to be. This is 9 over 25 minus, it's going to be 16 over 25. And it's going to be negative, that's 7 over 25. So answer to part B is negative 7 over 25. Let's move on to part C now. Okay, we'll do part C. Half angle for sine. So we have sine theta over 2. This is part C. Let me erase that. Okay, when you look at the formula, it's going to be positive or minus, so we need to decide that first. Remember, we use the domain here. So theta is actually between pi and then 3 pi over 2. But we're taking sine of theta over 2, so we need to divide everything by 2. Okay, everything by 2 becomes 4. Where's theta over 2 now? It's greater than pi over 2, which is 90, and then 3 pi over 4. So it's less than pi. So it's going to be second quadrant, right? If it's second quadrant, when you sine anything in second quadrant, it's going to be positive. Remember, all students take calculus, second quadrant. Anything sine as well as cosecant, because that's 1 over sine, is going to be positive. Okay, so we know that our answer is going to be positive. Okay, so that's been taken care of. So it's going to be positive square root of 1, let me put it a little bit down, 1 minus cosine of theta now. So cosine theta is going to be negative 3 over 5. Okay, everything multiplied by, still under the square root, multiplied by 1/2. Let's simplify now. So we got 1 minus 3 over 5 becomes 1 plus 3 over 5, which is 8 over 5, multiplied by 1 over 2. Well, 2 cancels with 8 4 times, but then it's square root of 4 over square root of 5, but then square root of 4 becomes 2. Okay, and then when you rationalize the denominator here, it's 2 times square root of 5, everything over 5. So that's answer to part C. Let's do half angle for cosine now. Okay, I want you to try this by yourself first, and then let's check it with me. So cosine theta over 2 now. So we're going to be using this formula right there. Okay, but what did I say? Before you do anything, you have to decide whether it's going to be positive or negative. Remember earlier we did the theta over 2. So theta over 2, using that domain, let me show you again. It's going to be, you need to divide everything by 2. So it's going to be between pi over 2 and, let me see, 3 pi over 4. Okay, which is going to be what? Second quadrant. Okay, when it's second quadrant, theta over 2 is going to be second quadrant. And when you cosine anything in the second quadrant, it's going to be negative. You have to be careful. Okay, you have to really be careful with the sign here. Because if the sign is wrong, the whole answer, even though the numeric value is right, it's going to be wrong. So we know our final answer is going to be negative. And then we do the same thing here. Square root of, now it's 1 plus, not 1 minus, because we're doing half angle versus cosine. 1 plus cosine of that theta, we're using that theta now in the third quadrant, is going to be negative 3 over 5, and then everything multiplied by 1/2. Okay? If that's not comfortable for you, just put it divided by 2. It's up to you. And negative stays outside. It's going to be, what is that? That's 2 over 5 times 1 over 2. 2's cancel. It's going to be negative 1 over, square root of 1 is just 1, so 1 over square root of 5. When you rationalize the denominator, it's going to be negative square root of 5 over 5. Okay, so that's the answer to part D. Let's do one more. Let's do one more that looks a little bit different. Let's do this problem now. We got cotangent theta is equal to negative 2. And then secant theta is less than 0. Okay, let's figure out what quadrant that lies in. Let me see. Cotangent is just going to be 1 over tangent. Okay, so if we go, all students take calculus. tangent negative is over here and over here, but then at the same time, secant, which is 1 over cosine, has to be negative. So here it's going to be positive for cosine or secant. Negative section is here. So we know it's going to be in the second quadrant. Okay, so once you figure that out, I'm just going to draw my triangle in my second quadrant now. Okay, I'm just going to draw this triangle, right triangle, and that's going to be theta. Okay, and then we go, cotangent is -2, which means tangent of it, you could think of it this way, okay, it's going to be negative flip that, okay, which means opposite, and then over, what is it, adjacent. So it's because of this negative, the whole thing is negative because you're going left side here. Okay, so we got that one down. Let's figure out what the hypotenuse is. It's going to be -2 squared, which is 4, plus 1 square. Okay, it's going to be hypotenuse squared. So hypotenuse is going to be square root of 5. So that's square root of 5. Once you complete the triangle, let's go. Oh, you know what? This time, I'm just going to figure out what sine theta and cosine theta are first. Okay? Let me just write it here. So sine theta, before we do anything, it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse. So 1 over square root of 5. Let me rationalize it. Now I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, we'll see what happens. Then cosine theta is going to be adjacent, which is -2 over hypotenuse. Okay, so all these formulas, when you look at it, it's all in terms of except tangent here, sines and cosines. Okay, which is pretty nice. Now I'm gonna do A now. So A, it says find sine 2 theta. That's easy. I guess double angle for sine is the easiest one here, right? So it's 2 times sine theta, which is that 1 over square root of 5. No, there's a reason that why I didn't rationalize it, because radical 5 will cancel out each other. Watch. So, and then cosine will be -2 over square root of 5. Okay, so 2 times 2, it's going to be -4, right? 2 times -2. And then underneath it, square root of 5 times square root of 5, it's just going to be 5. So answer to A will be -4 over 5. That was simple. Let's move on to B, cosine 2 theta. So cosine, double angle for cosine, we're doing B now, 2 theta. So earlier examples, we used the first one and the second one here. Okay, I don't know if you can see that one more time. First one and the second one here. So this time, let's just use, ooh, I boxed the wrong one. Okay, we used that before. Let's use the third one, just for the sake of it. I don't know. Let's use that one now. So cosine 2 theta is going to be 2 times cosine theta squared. Well, cosine theta is this far, right there. So it's going to be -2 over square root of 5, the whole thing squared. -1. Let's see. So it's going to be 2 times, it's positive, so it's 4 over 5 -1. It's going to be 8 over 5 minus 1 is 5 over 5, which is going to be 3 over 5. So that's the cosine 2 theta. Let's move on to C. C says it's sine theta over 2. So sine theta over 2. Let's use half angle formula for this. But before that, like I said many times, you have to see whether it's going to be positive or negative. Not using this triangle, because we're taking sine of theta over 2, not theta, right? So, but then theta, you see there's no domain here, so this is a bit tricky. Okay, the theta is between, when you look at the theta only, it's going to be between pi, it has to be less than pi, and also it has to be greater than pi over 2, right? So let's write it. Theta, using that triangle right there, we know it's going to be between pi over 2, and then it has to be less than pi. But we're taking sine of theta over 2. So we need to divide everything by 2. So this becomes 4, this becomes 2. Now that theta over 2 is going to be between what is it, 45 degrees and 90 degrees, which is in first quadrant. You know that in first quadrant, everything's going to be positive. So we know the answer is going to be positive. So right there, forget about negative outside. Okay, it's going to be same thing with the part D. So sine theta over 2 is going to be now positive square root of 1 minus cosine theta. Cosine theta, you have to look at the triangle in the second quadrant. Cosine theta, we figured it out, remember? So you see how convenient this is? It's going to be minus 2 over square root of 5. Everything over, no, let me just do multiply by, extend that, multiply by 1/2. Okay, all you need to do is simplify now. So that becomes 1 plus 2 over square root of 5. Everything multiplied by 1/2. Let's combine. Before I combine, let's rationalize the denominator. This one's a little bit more tricky. So it's going to be, I'm just going to change to 5 over 5 for now. Plus, top one becomes 2 square root of 5 over 5. And then multiply by 1/2. Let me shrink that a little bit. So it's going to be square root of denominator 5. And then top is just 5 plus 2 square root of 5. And then you need to multiply by 1/2, which is square root of denominator 10. And then 5 plus 2 square root of 5. Okay? In most cases, this is okay. Or if you want to rationalize it, you multiply square root of 10 or over square root of 10. But this is okay. D is going to be cosine theta over 2. We already figured out what theta over 2 is. It's in first quadrant. Cosine of first quadrant is going to be positive. So we're going to use this one right there. 1 plus cosine alpha now. It's going to be negative 2 over square root of 5. And then multiply by 1 over 2. Okay, it's going to be, 1 is going to be 5 over 5. And it's going to be minus, I'm going to rationalize it, 2 times the square root of 5 over 5. Then you multiply by 1/2. Okay, and that's going to be 5 on the denominator. 5 minus 2 square root of 5. Everything times 1 over 2. That's going to be square root of 5 minus 2 square root of 5. Everything over 10. And 10 is still under the square root here. Okay? So that should be okay.